Rich Kleiman's Kevin Durant's business partner, co-founder of 35 Ventures, founded with KD. They're doing this thing called Cue Ball. It's a documentary, chronicles the lives of incarcerated basketball players, San Quentin State Prison. It's remarkable stuff. It's on Fox Sports. What I'm hearing, it's unbelievably well done. And Rich is joining us. Let me start with this. So I want to talk about Kevin. He tested positive for COVID-19. So let's just address that first, Rich. How is Kevin?
Kevin is fortunately feeling great. He is way past the isolation period. He's symptom-free. He is, for all intents and purposes, now back to the similar isolation that we're all kind of getting used to with the guidelines that were put in place, but nothing more than what we're dealing with now, and is out of the kind of dark period. So thanks for asking, and he's feeling pretty good.
This was always going to be a difficult year. Kevin is verbal. He likes to talk. He likes social media, and lots of people do. I have friends that are on their phones all day, my kids. And so when he got shut down for the year, he's an artist, and he couldn't do his artistry. He couldn't play basketball, where he's probably first or second best player in the world. I always thought, Joy and I said, it's going to be tough for Kevin because Kevin likes to perform. Has it been difficult, not just the virus, but for a great performer to not perform? If I was a great artist and I couldn't sing for a year, that takes away a big chunk of me. How tough has this all been for Kevin?
Well, you are an artist, by the way. And if they took away your show, you'd be miserable, right? So I think
yes.
I think there's the obvious that, you know, when your true love and your life's passion is taken away from you, there's that feeling, that exact feeling, the literal feeling of like, this thing I love more than anything in the world I can't do. I can't play basketball. But I think that he's incredibly mentally strong. I think some people question that because of his kind of banter on social media, and I think one clearly has nothing to do with the other. And he's incredibly mentally strong, and I think he was quick, before anyone around him, before all his friends and family, to see this as some sort of blessing and know that that was the only way he could look at it, and to start to watch film, to start to kind of master the mental side of the game, to take a well-needed reprieve. I mean, you think about how hard these guys go from the age of 8, 9, 10 years old. I think he really looked at it as like an opportunity in that way to kind of understand and learn the organization, to kind of define his voice within the organization, to watch his team play, to be in coaches' meetings, to be active. I mean, everyone saw how active he was on the bench this year, and, you know, I think he had to see it as a blessing. But, of course, when you're Kevin Durant, if you're anybody that is something taken away that they love, it's frustrating.
You were, it's funny. You were in sports, and then there's you work in music, and you're back to sports. And I think more than any sport, every sport has a different sensibility. Rich Kleiman joining us, partner with KD. And I think basketball and music have always been connected at the hip for years. And I grew up loving the NBA in the 70s, and I've always felt there's kind of a music NBA thing now more than ever. You worked with Jay-Z, so you were sports, you worked with Jay-Z, or you were in music, and now you're back to sports. Are there similarities? I mean, kind of take me through that tunnel of, celebrities, stars, music, and sports, and how they're conjoined.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's been well documented and pretty obvious for decades now how enmeshed the world of hip hop is and the world of basketball. I think for me, I was always obsessed with the world of sports, and I had such a gauge on my own ability, which I think is rare a lot of times with kids that like play so much and try so hard to make it to certain levels. I knew pretty early on, like I would be in the right gyms in New York to quickly know that my days were numbered. And I would be in the right rooms with the right players growing up in New York and say, well, I can't even, imagine moving at that speed. But I didn't want to be out of the gym. I just wanted to be around it. And when I would go to Knick games, I found myself just glued to the courtside seats, to just glued to the energy around the different personalities that were in the arena, and just how incredible all of that was. And for me, it was like, if I can be close to the game in that way, in any way, then I got to pursue that. And I saw so many similarities with kind of the just natural inherent cool that people in the NBA had to me when I was a kid, and to these like music impresarios, and to these guys that were kind of creating their business and their enterprise just by themselves. You know, people like Jay-Z and people like Puff Daddy and people like Jimmy Iovine, and you saw this happening. And for me, like, I started in sports. I was trying any way to get into it, so much so that, like, I was a bookie in college, but we'll shelve that for a second. I wanted everything to do with sports. So when I had an opportunity to work on this show, The Life, on ESPN, I felt like I was as close to sports at that point in my life that I was going to get. But the only real job they had for me was the music. And they told me they had a music budget. They told me if I didn't spend it all, I could keep it. So right away I said, okay, I'm not spending any of it then. And I went and found all these unsigned artists and producers and young labels in New York. And I started saying to them, if we get your music on the credits on ESPN's The Life, you know, I can't pay you, but it's going to be, you can sit in the living room with your family and show them that you made it. That brought me into the music industry. Ultimately, my journey through music, I was able to meet Jay-Z, had an opportunity to work for him for years and work on different projects in music with different Grammy-nominated artists. I managed artists that are incredibly successful today. But I knew that sports was my life's passion. And when I had the opportunity to get back into it, I really just never looked back on music. And it was odd for a lot of people around me because I had put so much into it. But that's not what I cared about. Like, I studied collective bargaining agreements when I was younger because I thought it was cool. I memorized box scores. I knew every college of every player that played for the teams in the 80s and 90s. So when I had an opportunity to get back into sports, I just jumped into it. And I think all the different, like, principles that I'd learned in the entertainment business and all the different kind of deal-making strategies and the personalities and just understanding how to communicate with talent, I was able to take that, add to that what I knew so well in terms of sports and the business of sports, and then for me it just felt natural from that point forward.
You know, I've compared Kevin to Aaron Rodgers. Great, transcendent, generationally relevant, smart on and on the court, smart with business. Both have some Silicon Valley ties, and both are sensitive. And I've said repeatedly on this show, it's okay to be sensitive. I have people in my family that can't take criticism, and then, you know, for me, I've been getting it all my life doing this. It's no big deal. I'm numb to it. Kevin, when he left the Warriors, I said, I think he's making a mistake. I think this is the perfect place for him. I think they're incredibly human at Golden State. I think that he has great support system, and I think Steph's the easiest superstar to play with, perhaps in the league. And I stand by that. I didn't like seeing him leave. Was there any point during it, as his business partner, that you guys talked about it, that you wrestled with it? Or did Kevin make up his mind and, you know, as somebody, as his business partner, you just say, all right, that's your decision. I respect it. I'm going to support you. Was there any wrestling with it?
Well, a few things. We'll get back to the sensitive thing because I think that word is used too quickly when it comes to people that like to communicate and talk about their emotions and disagree. But putting that aside, yes, we talk about it. Yes, we wrestle with it. And yes, it's his decision ultimately, and I never challenge it. I think that especially in the evolution of our relationship, because I started as his agent, I kind of transitioned into being his agent and really more so his manager. Yeah. And then we kind of took all of the assets within that ecosystem and turned it into this business and enterprise and hired a staff and created a platform. So our kind of dialoguing has changed. So yes, obviously, just like any decision we make as business partners, I talk to him about it. But what we're not business partners in is his job in the NBA. In that job, I'm his manager, I'm his friend, I listen, and nobody can make a more educated decision, nobody, on where they're going to play but players in the NBA. And I think that is kind of the tricky thing at times because it's like if you had asked me what job you should take at a certain network, I'd give you my opinion, but I don't know the ins and outs of what goes on every day. I don't know who you see when you walk through the hallway, how human resources deals with you, where you want to live, what kind of temperature and climate you want to live in. Those decisions he has to make, and he has to stand by it, who he wants to play with. And, like, I think from that standpoint, I get frustrated when I hear certain people say, like, that agents, how could they let a player make that decision? How could they ever allow him to go there? Like, that representation should be fired. Like, that's days in the past. That's
Right.
that's all stereotype, because the reality is NBA players and athletes in general, to me, are some of the most astute business minds you'll find, especially at young ages. So I give my opinion for sure. And it's like everyone knew I was a Knicks fan. Kevin knew that. But at the same time, like, we talk, and then he makes his decision.
Yeah. Let's get back to the sensitive part. You don't like me using that word.
Well, I think I sometimes look, and I'm not even saying this with Kevin. I think, like, sensitive, emotional, it's like a blurry line, because, like, okay, so does Kevin find it okay to go back and forth with somebody that disagrees or makes some blanket statement or some inaccuracy? Yes. Does that usually represent somebody that's, like, in agony over the statement or so pissed off that they have to somehow defend themselves? Yeah, that usually is like some kind of reflection of someone being sensitive. I think that Kevin honestly, like, enjoys the banter the same way you sit with the microphone and enjoy the conversations. I just listened to your whole thing about Michael Jordan, the Bulls, for 6 minutes. You put so eloquently, like, why everybody loved the Bulls. You enjoyed that. Kevin enjoys that banter with people on social media, and that's honestly why these platforms were created. I think he's really ahead of his time, because I think when he started it, everybody thought he was nuts and sensitive, and everyone wanted to know why he would ever stoop to this level. And then you see everybody doing it. I mean, it's just kind of the way of the world, and he grew up in this generation.
Yes.
I don't think it reflects how he's feeling. It's like when he puts the phone down, you don't see him walk to the kitchen like, I can't believe this kid just said
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.